Last week, we started this series called Being Ready to Date. Now, I know that for some, you hear that title and you're like, I'm not ready to date. I'm not interested in being ready to date. None of this applies to me, right? But here is what I want you to understand about why we're going through this series and why I wanted you junior hires to be in here without the high schoolers. They are in a different stage of life. They're supposed to be. One day, you guys will be in that stage of life and be talking about some other things that are going to totally apply to you right now. Here's what I want you to understand. That what we're going to talk about here tonight, what we talked about last week, we don't want to get lost in the, oh, well, this is actually like how to date. And if you're not in a place where you want to date or have the opportunity to date, you could easily write this off. But here's what I want you to understand. What we're going to talk about here tonight applies to you tonight. What we talked about last week isn't something for the future. It's not something like way off down the road. Well, one day when you have a boyfriend, when you have a girlfriend, it applies to you right now. Okay? And last week, the point that we made was you need to be who you were made to be. Right? If you're going to be ready to date, whenever that is, you need to be who you were made to be. Now, right now, in your friendships, in your relationships, with your parents, it is important for you to be who you made to be. Because if we start to live our lives going, oh, well, I want to be accepted by this group, so I'm going to change this about my... Anybody here ever been tempted to do that? I'm gonna act this way around this crowd because I need this crowd to accept me, and so I'm gonna... Anybody? Yeah. I guarantee every one of us, whether it's so that you feel like you belong on a team, whether you feel like you fit in class, whether you just at youth group, but we need to be who we were designed to be. And the way this plays out into whenever you start to have attraction, for a guy or a girl that's cute, whatever it may be, is this plays out where you need to be who you were made to be. And knowing, hey, am I in a place where I should be pursuing a dating relationship? You need to be able to consider for yourself, am I being authentic? Am I being who I was made to be? Or am I putting on this show? Am I trying to act cute? Am I trying to dress the right way? Am I trying to be charming? Am I trying to be cool? Am I trying to be macho? Are you being who you were made to be? And whether you, and junior high is when, for a lot of people, it's like, oh, you start to notice, that girl over there. You start to notice that guy over there. You start getting the, celebrity crush, You're like, oh, well, I don't know what these little feelings in me are, And that's where that happens. But this is where there are a couple factors that we need to consider when it comes to, am I ready to start pursuing those kind of relationships? Are you in a place where you should be in a relationship? Where you look at your life and you go, you know what? I am able to be who I was made to be. I am able to be confident in who God has made me to be and who God what God wants to do in me, and I don't need to change for anybody. Or are you in a place where you're living in insecurity, you're living in wondering, like, am I good enough, and struggling? Because if you enter into a relationship like that, it's going to be a broken relationship. Similarly, you need to be asking yourself, am I someone that somebody else should consider dating? Am I ready to date? Being ready to date means being dateable. You yourself being in a place where you're like, am I living the life that I'm supposed to live? And where somebody else should look at me and go, you know what? She's where she needs to be. Or he is authentically who he is. And he or she would be a good person for me to date. So while this is called being ready to date, all the things that we're talking about are things that need to happen before you date. Before you have a girlfriend, before you have a boyfriend, before you get tangled up in this idea of having an exclusive relationship with somebody. So that applies to you right now. You sitting here, it doesn't matter right now whether you like a boy, whether you like a girl, whether you currently have a boyfriend or currently have a girlfriend. None of that is what we're talking about. What we're talking about right now is what needs to happen before any of that happens. What needs to happen inside you to be who God has made you to be? And one of the things that we want to talk about, that we want to look at, is this idea of how do you handle, you personally, and get real personal with yourself, okay? How do you handle criticism? How do you handle someone saying, hey, you should do this? Hey, what you did here wasn't good. How do you respond to someone holding you accountable? Meaning, coming to you and going, hey, you did this thing and not cool. You shouldn't do that. That wasn't nice. How do you handle, what happens to you inside? And I can tell you from in my life, something very specific happens to me when someone criticizes me. And it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's my boss, whether it's my kids, whether it's my wife, whether it's a friend. Something happens in me when they go, you know what, something about you wasn't okay, or isn't okay, or isn't good. Something happens in me, and there are a variety of ways that I can respond. There are a variety of ways that you can respond to criticism, to somebody holding you accountable to something. So see if you recognize any of this. Now, there's the comebacks, right? Somebody criticizes you, somebody says something that you don't want to hear. It's like, yeah, well, I know you are, but what am I? Right? There is the ever affected, yeah, well, shut up. That works, okay? Or the ever popular, your mom. Oh, very good defensive ways of warding off criticism and accountability, ways to get people to just leave you alone, mind your own business, get away from me. Those are all ways that we fight this off. But accepting criticism and accountability, it is hard. It just is. We don't like it. I don't know a person in the world who goes, hey, Matt, I was wondering, just anytime you have the opportunity, if you could just tell me something that you feel I didn't handle the right way. If you could just, any free moment that you have, if you could tell me if there's some way that anytime that I've offended you, okay, that you don't, if you could just let me, anybody here walk around and do that? Could you please just let me know all the ways that I'm undesirable to you? Okay, now, there are, though, ways of accepting criticism and accountability. Now, one way is receiving it in shame, okay? This is where, let's say a baseball coach goes, you need to work on, when you set and you swing, following through with your swing, right? You need to work on following through with your swing. Now, receiving that criticism in shame, the response is, yeah, I know. I'm terrible at baseball. I don't even know why I play. In fact, here, why don't you just go ahead and take this bat and just break both my legs, please? Because I am not worthy of playing baseball. I am horrible. I'm terrible. Now, that's one way to accept criticism. Is that a healthy way to accept criticism? No. Is that something that's just going to bring you tons of life and it's just going to make a situation all better? Okay, so now some people will act like they are willing to accept criticism, but then they explain it away. They act like they're willing to hear it, but then so if a person, one of your friends says, hey, you said that you would pick me up at 5 and give me a ride, but then you went to Stephanie's house and I saw posts on Instagram of you guys hanging out, and I was just left at home. Not cool. And so they go, oh. But then they explain it away. Oh, yeah, well, I didn't know that Stephanie was going to call. And I didn't know that she was going to have me over. And so when she called, I was just like, oh, I got to make a decision. And so I just felt like I just went ahead and went with her. And yeah, so that's what happened. That's why I didn't pick you up. Actually receiving accountability, actually owning what they did, not so much. Just kind of explaining it away. Then there is the outright rejecting it. There is when somebody tries to say, hey, you failed here, or hey, this isn't good for you, you should not do this, or hey, you said you'd never do this again and now you're doing it. When criticism or accountability is brought to them, they just reject it and dismiss, that I refuse to have any accountability for this at all. It's like, hey, why didn't you turn in your homework? Oh, yeah, well, the teacher never asked for it. And there's a basket in the front of the room where we usually turn in our homework, and the basket wasn't there. I didn't see the basket, and so I couldn't turn it. How am I supposed to turn in my homework? You expect me to do the impossible when the teacher doesn't ask for it, and there was no basket? Just back off, okay? Right? That's the rejection. Okay? That is the I refuse to be accountable. I refuse to accept the consequences of my action. This is all you. You are ridiculous. You don't understand. You are out of line. Just get out of my face. Now, I'm not going to ask which one, but how many of you would be honest enough to say you identify with one of these methods? Either the receive it in shame, the explain it away, or the reject it. Do we want to see which one it is for each person? Yeah. If you want to, you don't have to. Which one you receive it in shame? When somebody points out a flaw in you, you're just like, oh, I'm terrible. Okay? Thank you for being honest. How many of you explain it away? You have a reason for everything and why everybody else, okay. And then how many of you reject it? Everybody else has it wrong. Nobody else gets it. Nobody understands it. Okay, good. Thank you guys for being honest. That's good. Now, relationships, okay? Any relationship is built on building trust with one another, having open communication, being able to receive and give into one another's lives. And whenever we are unwilling to do either of those things, give or receive, in our relationship, the relationship is not going to work. Whether it's a friendship, whether it's parent-kid, boyfriend-girlfriend, if you are not willing to give and receive in the relationship, it will be a broken relationship, and there will be a limit to how close you can get. There will be a limit to where that relationship can go. Where you can keep it at the surface, you can keep it oh, well, we hang out. There are marriages, where people have stood up and they've said, I commit to you for the rest of my life, till death do us part. Relationships where they will not be honest with one another. The most important thing to them is just stay cool, be cool. Let's not fight. My dad, when he was 18 years old, his mom sat him down in the kitchen and said, your father and I are getting a divorce. And what my dad would tell you is, at 18, he had never one time ever heard them disagree. In 18 years, never saw them fight, never saw them disagree, because the most important thing was just, hey, let's just keep it cool. But it was not real. The giving and receiving of criticism or accountability is crucial for relationship. Hear that, you guys. The giving and receiving of accountability is crucial. Now, the way to do it is also crucial. You could do it in some really destructive ways. You could tear each other down. You could destroy one another. It's like, there's a difference in going, hey, why didn't you turn in your homework? And going, you stinking irresponsible kid, what are you, stupid? Why didn't you turn in your homework? Different, right? So I'm not saying that you just hold each other accountable and just be critical of one another. It's not that. How you do it now. The Bible tells us how to do it. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but let's first talk about receiving. How do you receive? Why should you receive accountability and criticism? So there's this. Proverbs says this, receive Get all the advice and instruction you can so you will be wise the rest of your life. How many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you, if you're honest with yourself inside, that scares you, right? You don't have to answer, but you look at that, thank you though, but you look at that and you're like, get advice and instruction? So you push it back. So if anybody, whether it's a coach or a teacher or a friend or a parent, comes to you and goes, hey, this isn't cool, or hey, this isn't working, or hey, this is inappropriate, immediately the defenses go up and you reject instruction. You reject wisdom and accountability and advice and counsel because you're afraid that what it really means is you're incompetent, you're stupid, you're ignorant, you don't know what you're doing. And so no, I'm not, and we reject it. But here, look at what it says is the effect of receiving advice and instruction. What will happen? You'll be what? Wise. The reality of that, and sometimes it is embarrassing. Sometimes it is when somebody points something out to you that you feel like you should have known. It is like, I blew it. And it may mean that an apology is in order. It definitely means that, or it could mean that change is in order, doing it differently. But do you find yourself rejecting counsel, rejecting advice? Because you think it makes you weak, you think it means you're stupid. But here it says, if you will accept wise counsel, if you will accept instruction, and it says, get all the advice, and what that says to me is, you should ask for it. You ever done that? Go up to a coach and say, hey, how can I get better at my serve? You ever go up to a teacher and go, you know what, I really need to do better on the next test. Can you help me? I don't understand this. Have you ever been willing to acknowledge your weakness? This is something that is key in relationships, that you would be willing to be open to advice and counsel and instruction. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to be somebody who has all the answers and can do everything. But a lot of times we reject it because we think it makes us stupid. So when it comes to friendship, when it comes to relationships, look at this. Wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. Wounds from a friend. Now, we look at that and we're like, friends aren't supposed to wound you. Okay, there's a video of a guy who falls off the train platform onto the tracks. And he's unconscious. And he starts to get conscious, and people are yelling at him, like, get up here, come on, you can do it, get up here, get up here. And he can't. But everybody's like, come on, you can do it. Train's coming. No one is willing to help this guy. They're all just standing there going, come on, you can do it, you can do it. A guy jumps down onto the track, train coming, jumps down onto the track, puts his arms around this guy and flings him across the track and then jumps out of the way, and they're both saved. Now, when he threw this guy flew like a rag doll. He hit his head on the ground. He banged up against the other tracks. I mean, it was violent. But it saved his life. Now, he could stand up. Imagine this. He stands up and he looks at that guy and goes, what are you doing being so rough, man? I can't believe you just grab me and throw me out. I hit the ground and everything. Can't believe you. This is the way we sometimes respond to wounds from a friend. From a friend who says, you know what? Your attitude kind of stinks. From a friend or a parent who says, you know what? You've been really lazy, and it's not going to help get you where you're going. You need to get to work. You need to work harder. And a lot of times we treat counsel and advice like that like we would scream at the guy who just saved our life, who he was the only one who was willing to jump down and do something. And yes, it was violent. Yes, it did not feel good. Yet all of these things, but he was the only one. Do you ever consider that a friend, parents, teacher, coach, whoever, who is saying some things to you that are hard to hear? That's exactly the best thing for you. And you guys, I struggle with this too. Wounds from a wife who knows me better than anybody, who says, Jeff, when you talk to the kids like that, they think you think they're dumb. Well, I didn't. Now, here's my choice, right? Well, I don't think they're dumb. No, I just, I'm just telling them, you don't, leave the milk on your desk for 6 days and then drink it. I'm just saying. Right, Jeff? But when you say it like that, they think you think they're dumb. I have the choice. I can reject it. I can explain it away. I can make it all, well, they're just misunderstanding. Because it doesn't feel good. I don't like being told that I've somehow communicated in a way that I didn't mean to, right? Are you with me? I mean, we all suffer from this, right? And it will be like this into your relationships. When you start to date, when you get married, when you have kids, are you open to receiving criticism and receiving accountability? As iron sharpens iron, a friend sharpens a friend. I'm just going to throw this out to you and think about it. Do you believe that you need to be sharpened? Or do you think you've got it? I know everything. I've got it handled. Everybody else needs to get a clue and just shut up and get out of my business. How do you approach it? Do you believe that you need to be sharpened? And is that how you handle criticism? Let me ask you this. Do you find yourself, this is just a little test for you, okay, to run on yourself. Do you find yourself always right? When you argue with your parents, when you are with your friends, that what you think, what you do, it's always the right way, and they are never right. It says something about this idea of iron sharpening iron. Are you open to allowing people to make you better? Fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. You always find yourself being right. And you guys, I am as guilty of this as any of you. So please don't take this as, dad standing up here lecturing you. This is me. For Emma, I'm actually lecturing her. This is dad actually lecturing her. But this is me. Fools think their own way's right. Everybody else is wrong. Those who trust their own insights are foolish, but anyone who walks in wisdom is safe. You guys, this is for all your relationships, starting now. This is what we need to be considered. And in my life, in my marriage, this is so hard. None of us, receiving criticism and accountability is hard. It takes humility of going, you know what? I blew it. Yeah, I'm not enough. I didn't do the right thing. I didn't make the right choice. I came across in a way that maybe I didn't intend, but I still need to own it. And until you can receive criticism and accountability in a healthy way, it's going to impact all your relationships, and you'll never have a healthy relationship. And the scary part is, it will always be someone else's fault. You'll point around to all the coach who's just ridiculously mean, the teacher who hates you, the friends who just, they're all sassy and snobby and don't want, the parents who are just out to get you and make your life miserable. And you'll carry it into your dating, you'll carry it into your marriage. And so we are called to give, or we're called to receive input. And there's another element of this that goes even deeper and it's even more serious, that our willingness to be held accountable in our relationships is an indicator of our willingness to be held accountable to God. So if you think this is just about the relationship with the person sitting next to you, or someday the person that you date, or someday the person that you marry. This, if you're unwilling to receive criticism, you're unwilling to receive accountability, it is also saying something about, well, what about when God says, hey, I've called you not to have this attitude. I've called you not to participate in these activities. Your response will be the same. Oh, well, God doesn't get it. God doesn't understand my situation. God doesn't know what I'm really up against. And you'll justify it away, you'll reject it, and it'll always be somebody else's problem. It will always be God's problem. So then there's the element of giving criticism and accountability. Okay, so receiving it, we hate. How many of you would say you're pretty good at giving the accountability and criticism? Anybody? Okay, you're like, oh yeah, no problem. You give me a person in the room and I will find everything that they need to fix about themselves. So this is where it is also tricky, because it's not a thing of like, all right, good, you have permission to hold all your friends accountable. You have permission to just like criticize and judge people and find all the things that are wrong. See, the Bible talks about this too, how we're supposed to give criticism and accountability. And the first thing is, there needs to be a healthy balance of criticism and accountability, but also encouragement. What are your friends hearing from you? Is it always criticism and accountability? Is it always what's wrong with them? Is it always what's wrong with the stupid teacher? Is it always how your parents are just idiotic? And is it always just the criticism and the accountability? Or is there also encouragement? 1 Thessalonians says, so encourage each other and build each other up. Hebrews 10:24, let us think of ways to motivate one another to love and good work. How motivating are you to the people around you? Are you just critical? Are you just complaining? Are you just wanting to be like, oh, you said you were going to do your homework for the rest of the year. Well, what happened? Is it just that? Or are you also building one another up and encouraging one another? But it doesn't mean that we don't bring accountability, right? Galatians 6:1-3, listen to this. Brothers and sisters, if any believer is overcome by sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the path. Gently and humbly. See, I can be really good at being critical. I can be really good at holding someone accountable for their actions. But man, the way that I do it, because if I get my kids to do what I want them to do, but I think they're stupid, or I insult them, or I tear them down, what good is it? I've done a lousy, I have failed. So as you gently and humbly help somebody who is making the wrong decisions, who's getting involved with things that they shouldn't be getting involved with, gently and humbly help them back onto the path. Get that? Help them back onto the path. You don't just say, hey, idiot, you're on the train track. Hello? You're on the train track. Because a lot of times people will be like, I know, but I can't get off. I don't know what to do about it. Help them back onto the path. Hold them accountable. Help them see where they've gone wrong, gently and humbly, and help them back to where they need to be. Share each other's burdens. In this way, obey the law of Christ. If you think you're too important to help someone, you're only fooling yourself. Look at this. You're not that important. No, it's not saying you're not important. But when we have the attitude of like, yeah, fine, they're going to be an idiot, forget them. We are called to come alongside people and hold people accountable. But it's not our job just to call them out and say good luck. Gently instruct those who oppose truth. This is how you give criticism. This is how you're supposed to give accountability. Gently instruct those who oppose truth. Perhaps God will change those people's hearts, and they will learn the truth. Then they will come to their senses and escape from the devil's trap, for they have been held captive by him who does what he wants. God may want to use you, but if you are unwilling to hold a friend accountable, what kind of friend are you? And you guys, I've lived this out. I had a best friend, Matt. We grew up together. We lost track of each other a little bit in high school, but then, man, he came back and, we were like peas and carrots, right? We did everything together. And then Matt started to get mixed up with some guys who were smoking pot, and he ran a business, and he would hire these guys, and they hung out more and more. And I wasn't sure what to do, but because I didn't want him angry at me, I was like, well, it's his life. He can do what he wants. Who am I to do? And I backed off. And he went deeper and deeper into stuff that, you guys, to this day, I go, I should have stepped in. Whether he got mad at me or not, your friends getting mad at you for holding them accountable, if you do it humbly and gently, then they're dealing with their own stuff. And it is absolutely worth them getting upset with you. Because you may be the only one who's willing to jump down onto the tracks, grab them, and throw them out of the way. You may be the only one. Are you willing to do that? So you guys, the two things that I want you to consider, and you're going to talk about this in your detour groups, is how do you receive criticism and accountability? Do the walls go up? Are they fighting words? Are you like, shut up, mind your own business? And why is that? What is it in you that has created that? And then, are you willing to give input? Are you willing to give criticism? Are you willing to hold somebody accountable, even if it means that they're not going to like what you say? It's hard. It's hard to hold somebody accountable. It's hard to say, you know what, this isn't okay. You need to change this. Or I'm going to ask you not to do this again because this is offensive, or whatever it is. Are you willing to take that step to be the friend who's willing to jump down onto the tracks and do it in love, do it gracefully and humbly? God, I pray that you would show us how to do this, because it doesn't feel good. It never feels good. But God, I pray that you would take us beyond ourselves. I pray that you would take us beyond our feelings and our emotions and our fear of rejection and our fear of making somebody mad, or how quick we are to get offended. And I pray that you would remind us that you want us to be wise and you have life for us. And so I pray that you would send people into our lives who would speak truth. And I pray that you would send us into people's lives to speak truth in love. So God, in our relationships, in all our relationships, that we would seek you first. And God, that we would allow you to move. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.